Welcome to the She Hates Tech.
Grab a drink and join us in the living room. She Hates Tech.
Welcome to the She Hates Tech podcast. My name's TJ.
And I'm Rachel.
And who's this?
And this is Penny, our podcast pup.
Podcast pup, that's right. She is a mama's girl, so she'll be on your lap probably most times we record and content as can be.
Yeah, hopefully.
That's all she wants to do is be with you.
We're glad you're with us. And to start off our podcast and to just kind of start this conversation about tech haters, tech lovers, and everything in between, we're going to tackle the topic of how did we even get here? What did life look like for our parents? What did our childhood look like versus the childhoods of our children that we're raising right now? And so let's just have a conversation about that. Let's just kind of tease that out and go down memory lane. What did the 80s look like? We're 80s babies. So, What did we have going on in the 80s tech-wise? I mean, it certainly wasn't brand new then. There was definitely a lot of technological advances going on during that time. But in terms of day-to-day life, what were our parents doing technologically on a day-to-day basis and in their raising of us?
I know, like my dad, my mom, the technology that was most prevalent was television.
Yeah, same in my household. And I know we had a record player.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a record player as well. My dad was really into audio tech, so he was like the 18-year-old, right? Remember that he like would spend most of his paycheck on like a good receiver.
That reminds me of the 8mm reels. Like my dad, when I was born, so 1982, he had a camera that he was taking 8mm film of our family. And I think some of the early ones, he had a mic plugged into it. So he was also on the cusp of like, what was the coolest, latest, and greatest kind of tech toy for your family? Phones, though, I mean, they were wired into the wall, right? There was like one, maybe two family phones, and not in every room. I don't believe so. I think we had like one central phone and then maybe one in the basement.
Yeah, we had one in the basement too. Do you remember when you got, like, your family got the first cordless phone? Or was that a thing? It was huge for us.
I don't know that happened for a while in our life, because I just know we were really excited when our parents let us buy a phone for our bedroom. And so I liked having the phone where I could load in my friends' phone numbers on speed dial. Mm-hmm. So I know that wasn't a cordless.
How old were you when that happened?
I had to have been 8 or 9 maybe.
So you had your own phone, like privacy of your room, door closed when you were 8 or 9?
Well, no, I mean, not privacy. Like my sister and I shared a room.
Okay. Yeah. I don't remember having my own phone in my room until I think I was 16. And because of the amount I used the phone, I got it and like got my own phone number. Like I got my own phone line.
Wow.
But I think I had
fancy.
to share it with the internet, because if that was still when internet was dial up and you had to use the phone line.
Right.
And so my line was the internet line. So we had to just communicate about who's going to be online or if I'm on the phone. Yeah.
Yeah. There was always an interest in the latest toy, the latest like technological advancement or invention that kind of made it fun to be entertained. But just one TV in our family room, no TVs in the bedroom, not a whole lot of like, okay, we all get our own screen and we all, get our own, we all had our own radios, I think. But
my parents divorced as well, and I had soon after that, at some point, my dad, I think for Christmas, got me my own TV for my bedroom. So maybe it was within a year or so. And so there were many nights at dinner when I was 12, 13 years old that he would eat in the living room watching what he wanted to watch, and I would eat in my bedroom watching what I wanted to watch. And we're both eating at the same time, but watching our own thing. And it wasn't every night. It was like if there were those one shows that I really wanted or he really wanted, because you would have to record them with a VCR. Otherwise, that's the only way you could watch it.
Right.
And I did not have a VCR in my room. So it was either watch his show and record mine, or anyway. So we would split up.
But there was definitely an effort towards entertainment
Yeah.
in your household.
Yeah.
And having those extra things and having your ability to kind of just go and get into it.
Yeah. So entertainment was a big focus. And that's what I think a lot of the technology was back in the 80s and the early 90s, right? Was music and video.
Yeah. More
CD.
access.
Right.
More individual access. So everybody wasn't sitting around in a living room listening to the same record.
Right.
So it just continued to get tailored towards individual ability to go off and kind of separate yourself and have your own choice, your own music.
Yeah. So what was it like in the car for you guys? So you have 3 siblings. I'm an only child. Who dominated the radio?
My parents did not, it was their car and their songs. So they weren't like mean about it, but we did not have the freedom to say like, oh, can you play this song? Or I want to request this. And maybe sometimes we would be excited about listening to a Christmas album during Christmas season.
I didn't either.
And it was usually just 102.5,
right.
You know.
Yeah, my dad always listened to, which 102.5.
St. Louis radio.
St.
right.
Louis soft rock.
Soft rock, yeah.
My dad would always have St. Louis KC 95.
Oh, gosh.
You know, rock and roll.
I'm really glad that wasn't ours. Oh, I did not like that station.
I love KC.
No. No. That was kind of our 80s childhood. Obviously, there's lots of other things that have probably other people had and other households had. We were kind of a middle income, modest lifestyle, but my dad always did like to invest in whatever kind of cool gadgets that there were. But did it feel like it dominated communication or day-to-day activity? Was it a driving force in your conversations or just like your activity as a kid and as a family?
What I feel like no, it wasn't dominating, but it was exciting when it happened.
Yeah.
And then it had time to settle in. Like you'd get the CD player. My dad bought like a $700 CD player, right? In the late 80s.
Yeah.
Hugely expensive. That dominated for a week, right? We're down there, we're hooking it up, listening, comparing sound quality and all this stuff. And then eventually that was it. And it settled into our routine and it became something we did. And my parents will go down there and just listen to music sometimes, like by themselves, crank it up or make mixes or whatever to cassette tape. But ultimately, it just became a part of it. There wasn't a new thing for years.
Right. It was a few and far between. So it was exciting and you appreciated it and kind of enjoyed it for a long time. And, you know, it just came to mind that I have to say, though, our family was just as excited about the Encyclopedia Britannica set as the CD players, because there was just this door-to-door salesman. And I remember we were really like, what? Mom and Dad are buying it? And we were just so excited when that shipment came in of this really nice bookshelf and all these fancy books that made us feel like rich and educated. And we just would sit there and like read.
Because they were rich mahogany, leather bound.
But yeah, so we did appreciate other types of things at the time besides just tech. And yeah.
One thing we did forget about, though, was the other piece of technology that was in both of our houses, video games.
True.
I got a Nintendo.
No, you got to go. In my house, you got to go before that. My dad had the Atari, the Apple IIe computer with just a few games, and it was very rote and boring looking. And so I wasn't as interested very often. But
yeah, I had something like that.
We had that for sure. That was before any video games. We had a computer that had some games.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, and we did never get the Nintendo. My dad didn't buy one. I don't know why, if my brother just didn't ask for it, but we were a Sega Genesis family. So
yeah, I got the Nintendo and I think I was 5 or 6. And so I had that for Christmas. I don't remember if I had time restrictions. I'm sure there was always a time when it's like, okay, turn it off, but I don't remember specific time restrictions, but I also don't remember wanting to never stop playing it.
Yeah.
I remember being done. I had my session and I'm done.
Okay.
And then same with Super Nintendo, except when I got a game, I paid for it with my own money. Even back then, it was $80 when Street Fighter
crazy.
2, Street Fighter 2 came out. And I was a little older then. I was probably 10, 11. I would maybe even older. And I would play the heck out of that because I wanted to beat it and get to the thing.
Achieve all the levels.
Yeah. But yeah, that wasn't dominating, but I felt like I had free access to it too.
Okay.
But I just didn't want to spend 10 hours a day on it as a 7 or 8 year old.
Okay.
Like you said, the Apple IIe when you were really young, but
Yeah.
now we're talking 90s computers moving forward into like what we would call the internet age.
Right.
So that really started like the dominance in my curiosity, but also the
Okay.
dominance of computers in my home was probably 94 to 95.
So when you were 14,
Yeah.
15.
14,
Okay.
15, yeah.
So you're getting older. It's becoming a lot more important to you, and you're kind of getting interested in it as an activity more than other things.
Yeah.
Okay.
That covers basically, the 80s and 90s, starting from music and then to computers. What are we seeing now, how it's different? And we know there's new devices, but how is it different now in terms of the impact of daily
Yeah.
life and what that
So
looks like?
essentially what made me start to hate tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like up until young adulthood, it wasn't there was no reason to have any kind of frustration or concern. It all kind of felt like it for over tech and the place it had in our lives. It all kind of felt like everybody was on an even playing field. Everybody was able to listen to radio. Everybody's, maybe having their headphones in for their jogs, and everybody's got a way to communicate and call each other. But
What year do you think that was roughly?
gosh, I mean, it had to be 20. When did we get our first cell phones? Because that's really when it started to change with the introduction of a cell phone that was really a much different machine.
I was going to say, do you think it was a cell phone, or do you think it once they started adding cameras and then more?
Yeah, like I think, and even, when we started having children, and
it was 2004.
and here I was having my first baby and looking for, innovative things to do with your child and to teach your child and raise them. That was when Baby Einstein was out. And so there was just this big push to show them videos or to show, have them listen to certain music, which was all, at the time it seemed very cutting edge, but that, a lot of the toys were very noisy, and there was a lot of push for exposure to young people for certain things. And then you've got, you're sitting at a computer in your home at your laptop, because now you don't just have like a home box, but it's like mobile.
Right.
And then the cell phones kind of went from being something that you just flip open to make a phone call to something you can look at and do much more than just make a phone call.
Right.
Now you could really delve into some different territory, so that it just feels like it evolved really drastically and quickly right around somewhere in the early 2000s.
Okay, early 2000s, right. So our first child was born in 2004. And are you considering that even the start of it because of laptops and other things?
Yeah, I that's when I would pinpoint
Okay.
a change in our life and those around us, and just the way people were spending their time and connecting. And because then you've got, we had MySpace come up where you could connect, and that was exciting. I mean, again, like I hadn't really developed this vitriol towards tech at that time. It was actually like an open access door to connect with old friends, to be connecting with people when maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, and to have more information about interesting things. So at the time, that was kind of like a sweet time of like, oh wow, now we can get on Facebook, and I find all these friends from my childhood or from high school and see what they're doing, and family members and new friends, and have it all, together in one place. So I feel like that was still a time where it was kind of an exciting and neat thing.
Side note, every once in a while, like an old Facebook post will pop up from like early Facebook days, and it's like, oh, I'm eating an amazing hot dog today.
Yeah, my earliest posts were just words, and they were really pointless.
Because it said,
like, it's embarrassing.
What was the?
They still are pointless, but I was definitely engaged in what many of us were at the time, of just kind of saying what was on our mind, literally, because it would say, "What's on your mind?"
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it just felt like, well, okay, I will let you know.
Right. That was the prompt, right?
Yeah.
And then 2007 hits, and the iPhone is released. The iPhone was different from every other phone in that time, because every other phone, like what was becoming popular with the BlackBerry phones, remember the tiny keyboard on the bottom? That was huge. They had mobile internet, they had messaging, they had email on your phone. And I had one and I liked it and it was cool, but it was a different world.
We've been reminiscing about what our childhoods were like and what kind of technology was available to us and easily accessible, and what I would think most families had, most average families, right? The radio, maybe a Walkman, a phone, a cordless phone to walk around the house, call waiting. Still, TV was pretty rudimentary. You had to go to the movie theater to see a new movie. You had to watch, I don't know that recording TV shows was a big thing until a while later, like on the TV. So everybody was pretty much still living an average life with some fun.
Yep.
And I would say that my kind of hatred for tech started to develop as I started to have my own family and have my own children. As we were having our own young ones to raise, it felt like at the same time things were really taking a very sharp turn in the technological world to just much more at a much faster rate and so much more individualized, and not as much, things that were bringing people together to enjoy, but separating people.
Yeah. So technology, the progression was to more personal tech,
Right.
but that's the marketing for it. But the translation can be isolating, right? So you get you have a Walkman, right? And now you're the only one who gets to hear that music, and you're in your own world. You get a laptop, then you can take it anywhere. You're no longer confined to like maybe the computer in the main office for the family. You can take your laptop anywhere.
And there's definitely benefits to these things.
Of course.
That is the hard part, is that, initially, we had things on social media start to develop, right? So where initially as a stay-at-home mom who's kind of isolated and you're home with your little one, now you can get online and connect with friends on Facebook. And there was that honeymoon phase with a lot of it.
Right.
Like, oh, sweet. Now I have a laptop and I don't have to go up to the office. I can sit in the living room and stay where I'm at. Definitely a lot of great benefits to some of this, but I feel that over time it has worn off that novelty of the convenience that it offered, and even just some of the ability to stay put and stay planted and have your own individualized interests and music and machines. It's just evolved into something that has really, in my view, completely changed who we are becoming as people, and not in a good way.
Yeah, and since mobile increased, so since we got away from the BlackBerry to iPhone and Android, where now the phones are always there, the cameras are really good for being little mobile devices. Now you can take that same picture and share on Facebook right now. And so now you go look at the friends I'm with right now, and somebody else is looking at it going, oh, look who didn't invite me.
Or in that moment, you're not really, we are struggling so much to be in the moment.
Yeah.
With what we're doing because of that enticement to cater it to a picture or a post or curating some kind of moment, and not just looking at that as, okay, this is my camera to take some snapshots to remember this. It's more like to do something creative with it, which even in itself isn't a bad thing, but it really pulls us from presence and just being in the moment organically, as we would have to without devices.
Right, because we also, now you know this about me, right? I am not a huge social media poster, right? It's not my...
Right, that's not your interest at all.
Right, and I'm not completely against it, but it's just not my interest. But isn't it a thing to like post like now, not to post in 24 hours what you just did, right? Like if you're at the baseball game or if you're at the beach or whatever, like it's kind of cool and it's kind of fun to go check this out right now, what my view is or what I'm doing right now.
Maybe. I think it depends on what generation you're from, because I think, we're older. We're not, hopefully most of us aren't struggling with like FOMO and like that immediacy of showing off. It's more just fun. And I know for me, there's a creative element to it that I've never would have had. So I'm like, oh, I like making something pretty and putting a song to it. So that I would want to take more time in. So
could you do that at night? Could you do that night
it's hard. Well, of course you can.
Right.
But you're kind of, that's a whole nother thing you're having to manage. Like, when's the best time to do this? If I want to give a time and attention to it, I have to wait. But if I want to do something quickly, then I'm being pulled in that moment away from what I'm doing in order to do it. And so it's like you're wrestling with something that is just so strange to be wrestling with. It's not bad, like wrong. It's just like, wow, this is the predicament we're in right now as society, and is presence and experiential things and then having this whole other thing that we're managing mentally and sometimes I think some of us feeling like it's just part of life now and not optional. Whereas our teenagers, you know, they're coming at it from a totally different generational mindset. It is how they're growing up and being brought up. That it is a part of their teenage years and their formative time. So they either have to be, you know, not participating in it and be kind of standing out and being different, or really like just giving into it and going, this is what we do. This is part of it. And, you know, it's sad because in a way they're really missing out on what it means to be in the moment. Whereas at least you and I and the generation that we're from and our age lends to the fact that we've seen both. Like we've lived before all this stuff, and then we've lived in it, and we can see the pros and cons a little more clearly than some of these young people. I think it messes with their mental health much more and their attention in a way that it, you know, is probably deeply affecting their ability to develop mature and thoughtful ways of living. And I know that there's tons of kids out there who aren't giving into this and who they, you know, they're solid. They're not that worried about it. They don't give it a whole lot of clout. Maybe they did it first, like you and I did when we had, you know, the new latest and greatest social media sites. But for by and large, I feel like it's just a huge thing when you know that, you know, like we went to a restaurant recently, and on the walk to the bathroom, there's groups of people making TikToks in the hallway, and it was fun and funny and kind of cool, and I kind of wanted to be in it. And then I go into the bathroom, and another couple of girls making a TikTok in there, and it's just so pervasive that ability to be creative in any moment at any time, even if it's maybe out of context and not a place that you would normally be doing those things.
Right. And then you and I sound like the old people talking to our kids, like, why do you have to do it like this? Right. Why do you have to do this with your phone? Why do you have to always be on it? Why can't you just put it down and call them or face? And some of our kids have sometimes done FaceTime calls. And I've been, honestly, they do more FaceTiming than adults.
Right.
When I was a kid, you know, this kid that really liked technology and thinking to the future, there were AT&T commercials that showed, like, in the future, you'll video conference, and they would say, you know, have you ever tucked in your baby from a payphone? You will, right?
I do not remember those. I did not pay attention to that.
There was a whole marketing campaign, and I loved every one of them. And
that's hilarious.
A lot of them have come true in different ways. We don't have payphones with video, right, and cameras. We have mobile phones, right? But anyway, I always thought video conference would be the way that we would all communicate eventually. And we don't in our generation. But the kids often do. It's just kind of normal. They just intersperse it. It's just kind of like, it's just melded with what they do. Sometimes they chat, sometimes they text, sometimes they snap, sometimes they video conference, sometimes they audio message.
Right.
They're just using it all depending what they feel like in the moment, and that's it. And they're what, you know, what do they call them? Digital natives.
But at the same time, there's been a loss in that skill of how to make a formal phone call.
Right.
How to find out information, you know, from a human being.
Right. That reminds me of
how to greet someone and have eye-to-eye contact, and to just face situations that are real-time, real people interactions.
And personalities. So sometimes this technology, what we've seen is that if you have more of a shy, reserved personality, it helps you stay that way and get worse, maybe. Whereas if you're a little willing to just be more open and communicative, then you navigate it fine.
Yeah.
And so personalities.
And for people who are really outgoing, it's like they're having a heyday with posting everything and chronicling their lives and sharing everything and living for the post and for whatever, you know, thing that they can put together to share. So it's I think it really in some ways separates those differences even more. It delineates our different personalities even more, and those that have that outgoing sort of personality and gregariousness, they get to shine even brighter. And those of us that are a little more introverted and we aren't always ready for that energy or comfortable with exposing ourselves or sharing, we're even further hidden because there's this new layer that you also have to navigate that maybe you're not super comfortable or good at navigating.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Well, I think there's a lot more to talk about with this.
Oh,
right?
yeah. We haven't even touched the surface of, we could take rabbit trails down each of these
Yeah.
areas, but this is just kind of broad brushing why we're having these conversations, why we're doing this podcast. I think I'm finding a place of peace with tech in our lives, and I've had my love-hate relationship with it, but overall, I hate coming home and seeing everybody on phones. I hate seeing my kids prioritize devices and pushing me with the boundaries I'm trying to set. And I know that you get frustrated with those things too, but you enjoy the advent of tech. And so it's just fun to wrestle with these topics and go down memory lane and see where we've been and where we're headed and how we can grapple with these things in a healthy way. So
Absolutely. And a big thing we'll talk about, in the future is, what do you practically do to help your family not be dominated
right.
by all this stuff around us, right?
Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
We have a lot more to unpack, but yeah, it was fun to kind of go down memory lane and think about the things we grew up with and then the crazy stuff that, our kids have at their disposal now and how to handle all that. So shall we continue the conversation later?
We will. We'll talk to you next time.